In this video, I'd like to look at a Python program that creates a tkinter interface. And that interface is just going to allow the user to schedule a room for a particular time. So it'll allow them to choose a room and a time and a day and make the reservation and do a little looking for conflicts. But the emphasis is going to be on the interface and not on the actual what the interface does. Okay, if you want this code, it can be found at the URL scene. Let's just run this and see what it does. So it makes this little interface. So it has what are called frames and labels, but it also has this thing where you can make options. So I'm going to choose room H120 on Monday at 8 and make a reservation. If I try to keep those settings and make another reservation, it's going to yell at me that there's a conflict and not make the reservation. But if I change the room or change the day or change the time, it makes a reservation. If I go back to the original H120 Monday at 8, which is there's already a reservation for that, it knows there's a conflict. There's no back end or memory or anything to this, so it's just sort of like while it's up, it remembers these reservations. Other than that, it forgets them. Again, the emphasis here is on the making the interface and getting some of the user input from it. Okay, so I'm using tkinter, so import tkinter and set up a basic tkinter. So I called it tk, so everything's going to be tk in front of it. Okay, so because I named it, I need everything tk in front of everything. Sometimes I will do it without giving it a name, and then it will just be understood as frame, what have you, but I was mucking about, and this was the version I ended up with at this time. Okay, so I said make it 400 by 400, and this propagate thing. There's something called packing and there's also something called a grid. Maybe I'll make another video with a grid, but here I was packing. And when packing, it wants to just fit everything, squeeze everything down to be just as big as it needs to be. And if you don't want that, if you want to sort of control the size and sort of have it more fill the space, which is what I did, then you need to set propagate to 0. And one thing to watch out for is then everything, the things that propagate 0 that you're using for must be given a width and height. If you forget a width or forget a height, it will assume that there's 0 and that item will disappear. So if you want it to just be as big as it needs to be, don't do the propagate. If you want to control the size, then you want propagate. But if you are responsible for the size, then make sure you give it both a width and a height, or it'll disappear. Okay, so here is, I'm going to have 3 main regions. Let me run it again. I had a region up here, a middle region, and a lower region. I call them the top, the middle, and bottom frames. So I used TK's frame. I called it the top frame. It is going to be, we always want to know who the parent of the thing is, who's the container. So the container of this frame is root. I gave it a background color of dark red. You can also use like hex codes in here, pound sign, and then 6 hex digits for the amount of red, blue, or red, green, and blue. But I was just using names here. I gave it a little padding, some space around everything vertically and horizontally, and gave it a width to match the width of the root and a height of 100. And then here's me packing it, so putting it into the root and saying pack propagate 0. So I want it to be, when I start putting things in it, then I still want the frame to be to stay its full size and not shrink down to just be whatever I put into it. So I don't want it to squeeze down to just say schedule a room. I want it to stretch out. Okay, so that was the top frame. I made a middle frame. The middle frame was white and had same width and a smaller height. And then I made and packed it and did the pack propagate. And same for bottom frame. That one I made navy. So dark red, white, and navy. Those are my main frames. And then I put a label that says schedule a room. I put it into the top frame. Its background is white, its foreground was navy, and its font was 24. So that's this rather large font here saying schedule a room. I packed it into, I'm putting it into the top frame. Here I am packing it. And this X is sort of like where you're going to put it. Are you going to fill it in vertically, horizontally, what have you? So this is filling the container horizontally. Doesn't completely fill the container because I have some padding in my frame, so it wants a little bit of space left. Here are my smaller labels. Again, the parent of this label is the top frame. It says room. Its background is blue. Its foreground is white. And it has some padding in 12-point font. So that is this room here. And we put it, and we're packing from the left. Then I am making my they'll call it an option menu. I want to think of it as a drop-down select from my sort of JavaScript background. We say, what are the options? So the options for the room is this list of these H120, H153, H155 rooms. I'm going to have to get the user's choice, which is going to, so that's what I'm doing here. So these are the possible rooms, the options for the room, and this is the chosen room. So we say then it's a string variable associated with the interface. So this connects it to the interface. It's a string coming from the interface. And so we set the room, what was set to room option 0. So when we start the interface, it'll be as if room 120 was selected. Okay, and then finally we create put it on the menu. So it's going in the top frame. The variable we get out of it is called room, and then the options for this option menu are, with a little asterisk in front, the room options. Okay, so that made the little drop-downy thing here, the option menu. And then it's just more of the same. So a label for the day and all the possibilities for the day, and label for the time and the possibilities for the time. So room, options for room, day label, options for day, hour, time label, and possible hours. Okay. And each one has the options are defined, the variable is defined, the variable is set to one of the options. I always decided to go with the 0 with the first one, and then sort of put it on the page as an option menu. I sort of interjected sort of functionality here in before I made the whole page, but I said I have a reservations list, and then my button is going to call a reservation list. So I said, here's my function reserve, and I am concatenating the room. Here I am getting the room. So room was the name of my variable, and I am getting it off the interface. Day, and I'm getting the day and getting the hour. So when I made these variables, again, they were directly associated with tkinter. So when I say get, it's understood, get it from the interface. And then I've concatenated that all together. If that is in reservations, then I'm displaying a message. We don't know what reserve action is yet. We'll see that below, but configuring it means to do something to it, and I'm changing its text to there's a conflict. Otherwise, I'm saying the reservation was accepted. I am appending concat to my list of reservations, and I am displaying. So I'm configuring a label to have the text, which is all of my reservations joined together. Reservations were a list. I'm joining them together with a \n, so each one will be on its own line. Okay, here I am making my button. So I think I defined reserve before the button because the button is going to call it. So I wanted it defined before I go sort of referring to it here in schedule. I don't want saying I don't know what you mean. So I'm making a tk a button. It belongs to the middle frame. It says make reservation. It calls the function reserve. Font was 24, padding horizontally was 5, and vertically was 5, and I put it onto that middle frame, and it was the only thing there. So that was that great big button in the middle there. And then I am making a label that just says reservations. That was here. I'm making a label I'm calling the action. So I'm making a label that says whether the reservation was accepted or whether there was a conflict. And so that started off as just in the beginning, so this is the text at the very beginning, and at the very beginning, there were no reservations. So I can't say if it was accepted or not accepted. So I just made it --. Then I have a final reservation, which starts off as blank, and this is going to list my reservations. So I make these labels and pack them onto my interface. And then root.mainloop is this thing that sort of pops up the interface, but also sort of keeps it in play, sort of creates effectively sort of like an infinite loop that keeps the interface showing up until we sort of click the X to close it and get out of that loop. So that's what I wanted to show you, making this tkinter interface. The only kind of interaction I've shown you here, well, two interactions. So one of the option menu, the user being able to choose from a set of choices. So there was a variable which was the choice, and then a list which was the possible choices, and then a button that had a command. I'll call it, again, JavaScript, sort of a click event. So when I clicked on the button, it called a function. I used a get to get the data off of the page, and then some just basic logic to make or reject a reservation. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you. Thanks for your attention.